Today's lesson will continue with factoring, but we're actually going to move on to factoring polynomials by just pulling out a monomial to now factoring specifically trinomials. In trinomials, we should know are polynomials that have three terms. So we're going to specifically factor trinomials that have three terms into essentially what will be two binomials. Okay, so let's quickly go through it. Trinomial we know is a polynomial with three terms. Those terms are joined by some combination of adding and subtracting. When we factor these trinomials, we want them to be in a standardized form, and actually that is called standard form. And that form will look like a polynomial just written in the proper order. In this case, something x squared, ax squared, plus something times x, plus bx, plus c. So my a, my b, and my c are all values. A and B we call coefficients because they're multiplied by variable terms. C is a constant because it has no variable attached to it. But it's important for us to have our trinomial written in this form because I need to make use of specifically the B and the C values. Okay, I'm going to need to be able to recognize what that value is from my trinomial and what that value is so that it will make factoring pretty straightforward. Now, before we move on, what I want to point out is what we're going to be doing, we've already accomplished without even knowing we were factoring. If you recall in class, there was a lesson in which I said, okay, think of two numbers that multiply, and I gave you a certain target, while at the same time adding to, and I gave you a different target. Well, that was essentially laying the groundwork for doing what we're going to do here, because when we factor, we're going to be using those skills. We're going to be looking for two numbers that multiply to C, and thinking about standard form, we know that C is that value right there, while adding to B, and I know B is the middle value right there, okay? So we're going to be thinking about two numbers that multiply, in this case, to 36, while adding to 15. So what I like to do sometimes is just do, okay, so I need to multiply, whoops, let me do this, multiply to 36, while adding, let's try this again, multiply to 36, while adding, so that's my C value, while adding to 15. So we can kind of go through in our heads if we need to. I know that 1 times 36 gives me 36. When I add gives me 37. If I had to, I could play around with the calculator. I know it's divisible by 2. 2 times 18 will give me 36, but 2 plus 18 gives me 20. And then when I move on to 3, I know that 3 and 12 will multiply to 36 while adding to 15. So those are the numbers I'm interested in. So we're thinking of two numbers that, in this case, multiplied to a target of 36, my C value, while adding to a target of 15, my B value. And from here, all I'm going to do is use those numbers to build two binomials. I'm going to say x and x, because that's what I would have to, if I thought about foiling, x times x gives me that x squared there. And then I'm just going to make one of these values complete one of my binomials. So one of my binomials will say x plus 3. And the other binomial, since I've already used 3 in the first one, I'll make use of the 12. We'll say x plus 12. That is the answer we're looking for. So our trinomial that we started with of x squared plus 15x plus 36 in factored form is x plus 3, x plus 12. If I wanted to prove that to be true, I could just simply take x plus 3 and take x plus 12. And if I FOIL, I should wind up back with the polynomial I started with, or the trinomial I started with. And let's prove that. Let's see. X times x is my first term, is x squared. Outside, x times 12 is 12x. Inside, 3 times x is 3x. Last, 3 times 12 is 36. Combine my two like terms, and I get x squared plus 15x plus 36. So I confirm that I'm in the proper factored form for my final answer because I can FOIL back out to the original trinomial. So that's all there is to it. So it's really making use of the values in our standard form, our B and C values specifically, coming up with our two numbers and just using those two numbers to build our binomials. So before we move on, I know that there's a typo here. This should say x squared. So cross out that 6. So this should say x squared minus 22x plus 40. Okay, just to be clear. So I know this is my B. All of that is my B, negative 22. This is my C, 40. So I'm going to be looking to multiply to my C, 40, while adding to my B, negative 22. We started to develop some number sense here. We should recognize that if we are multiplying to a positive but adding to a negative, both of my numbers will have to be negative. So negative 1 times negative 40, well, that gives me negative 41 as a sum. Being that it's even, negative 2 times negative 20, that gives me the negative 40 that I need. That gives me the negative 22 I need as a sum. Use those two numbers to build you two binomials. So I'm going to have x, since one of my values is negative 2, I say x minus 2. My other binomial, x, since my other value is negative 20, I'm going to say minus 20. If I were to FOIL that as a check, I should confirm I wind up with the correct trinomial. Let's see, x times x, x squared, negative 20x minus 2x, that's minus 22x. Negative 2 times negative 20 is plus 40. So I wind up back where I need to be. So that is factoring of trinomials. Again, the key is multiply to your C value, add to your B value. So multiply to negative 28 while adding to negative 12. While adding to negative 12. So I've set this up for you. Find your two numbers and factor this last trinomial into your two binomials and FOIL quickly mentally as a check. Do that, and we will come back to class and do more practice then.